Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to the Mel Blackwell Experience on this June 26th, the year of our Lord, 2025. Want to jump right in today with President Teddy Roosevelt, a true tough guy, interesting guy, grew up in interesting times. And I know you might have heard this before, but let's listen to his speech, The Man in the Arena.
The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort which, even if it fails, comes to second achievement. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Wow. Powerful words. Powerful words. Golly, a lot to unpack there, right? So you have the people that are trying to do something, right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, the green team and the yellow team, just say. And then you have all of the critics. And I think we'll really get into that today, what's going on with our government and what we're trying to accomplish. And I'll try to lay out some things from my perspective and simplify it if I can do any good at all. But also want to jump into one of my favorite topics in business. It's something very teachable, and I believe obviously business is the arena for those of us that that are out there trying to do our thing. Business is our arena, and I know as a change agent, being brought in situations where a company has hit a ceiling, and they're trying to bust through it. Right. So they've been successful. They're doing well. And, in business, you have a concept of kind of a core business, and then you can begin to go off core and develop like a whole new product or a whole new market or something different, some growth initiative to either expand the core or to create something totally different, right, off core. And I've been engaged a lot. I've read and studied a lot of other businesses I have not been engaged with, but I have also been engaged to come in and somebody says, we're not getting the results we want. We've read the books. We've done all the things we'd like to do, but I'm just not getting the results that I want in a specific area. That could be personnel. We think we're hiring the right people. We feel like we're training them and we put them in the right seat, we think. And then we don't get the results. Are we setting our goals too high? Are we not? Or are we trying to ask a cat to bark? Are we trying to ask a cat to fly? And then so that could be an instance. You can be breaking through a ceiling, trying to expand your business off core into something totally different. You could look at, we're doing the same thing we've always done, but we're not getting the same results. We were killing it. Now we're not. So the change agent a lot of times is brought in hopes that this person will come in, or this group of people will come in and be able to diagnose and then execute whatever changes need to be made. And it's usually not wholesale change. It's usually kind of laser focused, right? It's more surgical that you say, I want to, and then there are instances you go in, you're like, holy cow, this is going to hurt. You're everything. Your structure's wrong. Your people are wrong. Your processes are wrong. And I've seen it all. I really have. And I've succeeded at most of it, but I've also failed where I've tried to go in and we, build a team and do something and it just doesn't work. I mean, you just can't, you can't do it. I couldn't do it, but maybe somebody could. But anyway, so what I'd like to propose today is kind of a business best practice, is my concept of what I call what, how, when. And so very simple, but very complex in a business. So what happens a lot of times, mediocrity creeps in if you don't have a sound process for how you want to go about your targeting and then your execution. So also what can creep in is that cynicism that Teddy Roosevelt was talking about. Those cynics, those critics. Anytime that you're in a change environment where you want to change for the better, it could be you personally saying, hey, I want to stop doing blank. I want to exercise more. I want to drink less. I want to be a better person. I want to spend more time, with a group of people. I want to drop some loser friends, whatever it might be. When you start making that change, here comes the bad forces. There are entities and beings in the heavenlies that celebrate your failure. They celebrate your poor decisions. They celebrate your, crippling self-inflicted wounds. But you also have God, who's like a father, and you as a son or a daughter. And if you're a parent, you understand if your kid comes to you and asks you for something that you can do, your heart goes towards, yes, of course, right? God's the same way, but we have to implement the change, right? So the forces out there that don't want you to implement the change to do better, to achieve better results, to be a better person, to have a better business, those forces are real. And sometimes those forces can manifest themselves through just a resistance of people. They're not out there devil worshiping, doing Ouija boards behind your back in the business. They're just part of a cynical. So there are things that are bad because people do them, and you don't do them because you want to be bad. You just do them. So you become antithetical to the boss people. You're sick of them. You don't, if they ask you to go left, you go right. There's a lot of that stuff in business, a resistance. I call it counterculture. So the what, how, when method of leading people came out of my time in businesses trying to figure out, okay, I've been hired to be a change agent. I see the things that I think, best guess I can make, best hypothesis and theory I can come up with based on experience, and also maybe doing a little research and saying, man, I don't know, this is a tricky one. How do I solve this riddle? But once you decide to engage other people in that process, you are at the mercy of cynics. You're at the mercy of resistors. You're at the mercy of counterculture people. You're at the mercy of, you already have an us and them in that business. Maybe you're going to work for the owners of a business who've mistreated people for a long time, who finally come to their senses and said, hey, we need to implement some change. So you go out there thinking, hey, I work for the good guys, only to embrace the good people that work in that company and in that culture, and they're tapping out. They're like, man, you don't understand. Those guys are turds, man. And so you don't really go in trying to figure out good guys, bad guys. You figure that out by who's going to get on my side of the rope. If you're not on my side of the rope, I can't have you on the other side of the rope, because I've just told these guys I can do this thing. So the job of being the change agent in your own business, the job of being the ownership of change in your own life, when you say, I'm going to break a bad habit or I'm going to turn over a new leaf, you have to overcome yourself. You have to overcome your own bad decisions So the good guy, bad guy thing can kind of go out the window pretty quick if you just look around and go, who's going to get on my side of the rope? And once you get those people on the side of the rope, then you can do the scorpion frog test just to make sure you don't have a 40-foot tall scorpion right behind you, that's just going along, that's going to stab you in the back later. But the what, how, when's pretty cool. So let's go into that. So you want to focus on what first before you consider how you will do it or when you will do it. Okay. This was school of hard knocks for me. So what that means is you're in, so imagine being in a role, let's say that you're the president of the company and you go in, you have the senior leadership team around you and you say, all right, we want to set goals. Let's say we're doing our annual planning. We want to look at our plans. We want to go ahead and look forward to what we're doing next year. The first thing you have to do is decide what you're not going to do. We've alluded to the hedgehog effect, which is basically less is more. You're more effective if you focus on a core root, strength that you have, or something that's really critical to the business that you really want to focus on, and execute that excellently. So in the what mindset, it's first, let's try not to compromise. Mediocrity's absolutely not good enough. All right. You ask questions like, what is greatness? What is excellence? What is the best and most appropriate thing we should do? It's what, and what. And what you'll notice is people will come at you, well, how are you going to do that? It's cynical, but it's also the way we've been trained to think. And until you figure out what you want to do, don't burden yourself with how. And dang sure don't burden yourself with when, because those are compromising factors early in the what process, right? So what do we want to achieve? What is greatness? What is ringing the bell look like for us? And what happens is people will say, man, we can't do that. How are we going to do that? And so this is how you begin to expand the size of people's brain, right? And I've done this. I didn't know how to do this in my 20s. I started figuring out how to do it in my 30s, but I didn't know I was doing it. I just started looking back and reflecting. Then it became, I was doing it without being able to say I was doing. I couldn't say something as simple as, hey man, let's do what, how, when. And I trademarked that. But let's do what, how, when. And so the reason you do that is because this decision making is very complex at any level, but particularly at the top. The reason it's complex at the top is you have to push it all the way down. If you're in the middle, you at least have to push it to, from the middle down through your department. It's always difficult to hand off to-dos and the execution part of a business and say, all right, we've decided what we want to do. Now go do it. And so in this model, this is occurring really high up in the business first, and then you push it down. So let's kind of run through this. So why what first? Number one, what? Okay, so without any regard to how or when we accomplish it, what do we want to do? What is the right thing to do? What is the top drawer best thing we want? And then by separating what from how we do it and when we do it, we allow our minds to see and reach the full potential of what we really do. We're trying to expand our dream of, okay, don't worry about how or when yet, okay? What do we want to do? What is the thing to do here? What is greatness? And when you focus on what first, you push out any compromise that starts coming. So when you first try this, you're going to feel like you're fighting your team. And they might get a little frustrated because these are new rules. But it's extremely powerful in collaborative decision making. And it's especially powerful for the leader who's gone and committed to, hey, I will figure out the changes. I will figure out what we want to do. I'm going to now go accomplish that in the business. Okay. You can pull this back to your personal life. It works very well with what, how, when. Even if you're deciding we want to go on a really big vacation, it's if you just did the what, how, when, like figure out what would be really awesome, then once you figure out what, how becomes the next challenge. And so anyway, so once you've objectively and passionately decided what we want to do, you roll to step 2, which is how. Okay. So by establishing what first, we can now challenge ourselves not to back up and change what we need to do. This is real important. What happens is once you've decided that bold what, when you get to the how, well, dang, man, how are we going to do that? Right. And it's like, yeah. So let's keep going. There's a powerful concept in the entrepreneurial operating system written by Gino Wickman. And I've mentioned it before. I've been utilizing that is some serious kung fu since 2013. So 12 years into it now. I've never seen anything that works better in, I don't know how it would scale into $1 trillion business, right? But I know all the way into even at EBSCO when I was there, which is a multi-billion-dollar private business, it worked exceedingly well in the operating businesses because I was working with the different group presidents to try to figure out how to roll EOS into those business units. And it works very well. But there's a concept, in EOS, basically it's called IDS. And it's a very effective way to solve problems in a business. So IDS basically means identify, discuss, solve, right? So you identify the root issues, you discuss them, and you solve them. And at the end of an IDS session, you create to-dos for people in that room to take and do that week. So in the IDS model, that's where you really get into kind of the how. Like, how are we going to do this? What are the root issues and how are we going to do it? So basically, you're being smart. This is problem solving at its best. You've been bold on what. And then the process for how, what I'm saying to you is there are round wheels out there like EOS that can help business owners create that how process within your meetings. And so I won't go into the specifics of how you do the how, but there are entire models for business to do that. So I highly recommend EOS. And then what you do once you've kind of figured out how, so what bold thing are we going to do? Now how, we're going to figure out how without compromising what we decided. And that is really, as a leader, that's where you hold your ground. You hold your ground on, not sliding into mediocrity, not sliding into, well, yeah, we probably can't do what we wanted then. No, if you decided what you want to do, now you stay with that until you figure out how. And this is where you encourage people to think. You may have to send people home to do research, but you'll be amazed how creative your people are when you expand what it is you want to do. Because, listen, remember, you're in the situation there, you wanted to change things. And I've called it comfortably miserable before on purpose. You have to break through the natural inertia to hold on to the misery of current state. And as a change agent, that's probably it's your most difficult task, but it's also the simplest thing. It's very hard, but it's not complicated. You have to look at that situation and go, I have to overcome that inertia. Somebody is, oh man, I hate it here. I can't stand it. It's always the same crap. And you go, okay, well, let's change it. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, so that's what you're dealing with, is that misery that they have is they're more willing to hang on to that than they are to take the risk to go through the misery of change, right? So you have to tell them, no, the misery of change is going to be much better. I'm not promising it's not difficult. I'm not promising, but you have to come in with a system. So what, how, when helps you do that? What are we going to try to do? And you get them to inspire and you go, come on, you can do that. Oh, we can't do that. There's no way they'll ever approve that. Or, whatever it is, it's like, no, we're not compromising on what. We're going to come up with a kick butt what. And then we're going to come up with a how without compromising our kick butt what. And when we get to when can blow up just about any good business what. Because when is a complicated thing. When are we going to do that? Well, we have this coming up. We have trade show season. We have, you know what I mean? Well, we've got to go through budgets. And so when it can really slow you down and inhibit boldness. When can. So by holding when off to once you've got what and how done, you can aim the when better. And you can just push people. You also, if you're powerful enough in your business, you can go back towards the board or whoever else, your senior team, and say, "Hey, I'm gonna have to pull the trigger on this sooner than I thought." So what when does is it reprioritizes this what that you're trying to do. It reprioritizes it in the top 10 of the business, basically. So by having a powerful what, a bold what,
non-compromising, no mediocrity what? A killer how with a team that's committed and saying, yeah, I think this will work. Now you might, as a senior executive, have to go bust some, walls down to get the win to occur when you need it to, because it might be competing with other priorities, right? And so sometimes you can go immediately on a win. Sometimes you have to hold off. The win might be 3 months away. The bottom line is by separating the discussion and collaboration into what, then how, then when. By the time we get to the win, we have a solid goal with a solid how plan. And the last thing you have to figure out is how to execute the win. And I think it's really cool. It's awesome when you're able to get in a rhythm together, row the same direction, and slay seriously complex issues. And it's more fun. And winning's fun. And this approach is a powerful winning and competitive advantage. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how this business concept of the naysayers, the tripper-uppers, as we were hearing with Teddy Roosevelt, there's the person in the arena. So that I've always wanted to be that person in business. I wanted to be out there trying to do the right thing. And I'm telling you, we've talked a good bit about the good versus evil thing in business, the frog pond versus, the scorpions. Why you want to get to the frog pond as quickly as you can. Sometimes you have to go through the exterminating process, the tough stuff, to get to where you can walk through the business and say, hey, I see you have a sign on your chest that says, make me feel special. Let's work on that. And so that's the good shepherd mindset that causes you to go Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood, early in the process to create the safe town so that you don't have to deal with all of the backstabbing, cynics, people on the other side of the road pulling against you for whatever reason, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? And so, I'll tell a quick story. When I was working back, this would have been, 98, 99, 2000. It would have been 2000, 2001, I think. I'll never forget, I had a young manager who was down in Pensacola, and he called me, and he said, man, I got this guy down here that's really bad, and I don't know what to do with him. And I was like, well, fire him. And he's like, oh, Mel, I've never fired anybody before. This guy was first shot. Salesperson, promoted to sales manager, building a market in the telecom business. And I was like, all right, well, I'll tell you what. It was Christmas. It was like, I think it was right around my birthday. It was December the 18th, 19th, 20th, something like that. So I go down there, and at that time, my boss wanted to go. He's a really cool guy. He's just really cool. We had so much fun together. I never had anybody laugh more at anything I did in an endearing way. For whatever reason, I cracked him up. And so he was a lot older than me. I was, around 30, 31, and my boss was probably, in the early 60s. And he's like, well, I'm going to go too. And I was like, okay, cool. And I told him, I said, hey, dude, we're going down there to fire somebody. So, just don't get in my way. And he's like, oh, no, that's fine. And I didn't go into a whole lot of detail with my boss about it. I was a VP of sales and marketing at that time. So we go down to Pensacola from Birmingham. We drive in there, and I go in, and the market manager there, he's nervous. And I just said, dude, look, I'll take care of this for you. Okay. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm not going to do this for you again, though. The guy that was a salesperson was just wreaking havoc in the office like a bully. And for me, I'm like, this wouldn't last a minute. But for a new office with all salespeople, the sales manager's overwhelmed, been promoted, trying to train everybody, pressure a quota. And remember, in my organizations, even way back, it's like, hey, you start doing your job at hitting your quota. So everybody's a little worried about missing quota. And so, because that's we don't get paid to miss quota. And so we go down there. I invite it's a lot of ladies working there. Okay, lady sales. Females in the admin, he'd done a great job hiring people, but somehow or another he'd hired this turd. And so I didn't even deal with that guy. I just said, keep him out of here. Tell him we'll call him later today. And if he asks if he's in trouble, say, heck yeah, you're in trouble. So I spent from, say, 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, talking to every person that worked there. There's probably 15 people. Man, it was horrible. I was taking notes, and I had my boss in there, and I had this young market manager that was reporting to me in there. And so we're sitting around the table. It's a small conference room. And, one at a time, I bring people in. I had people cry. They were just like, you don't understand. He's just horrible. I mean, we had textbook intimidation type sexual harassment. Not that he was, doing anything physical, but he was creating a BS work environment. He was a bully. He naysayed everything. My young new market manager, recently promoted top sales guy. I mean, really good, but new at management. It's my job to teach him. So long story longer, we go through every single person. It was exhausting. We eat lunch and then we interview a few more people. We get to the end and everybody's just like, man, this guy's an absolute just rat. He's got to go. And I said, well, call him in here. We're going to fire him. So guy comes in there, sits down. There's my boss still. There's, the young, manager. It's just us. So it's all dudes. And I just looked at him. I said, man, I have never met anybody in my life that tried to get fired more than you. And I said, I just can't believe the things that I've heard. And I've never been one to get all that fascinated into why bad people do bad things. I just want them the heck away. And so, I talked for a minute and just basically said, the case is exceedingly established that you are a disruptor here and there's no way that you can continue to work here. And about that time, my boss, the 60-year-old guy who's generally tougher than nails, I could see him over there making a motion or whatever. And I just kind of looked over at him. And then the other gentleman that was working for me, they were just like, hey, do you think we could just pause for just a second? And I was like, man, you guys are about to go weak-kneed on me. So I asked third guy to go out of the room. I said, stay close. And we're sitting there with the two of them. And they're like, Mel, it is Christmas. And, I feel really bad about just firing a guy at Christmas. And I'm like, oh, man, I did. I looked at them, both of them. Both of them ganged up on me. The one who called me down there to get rid of this guy, the one who sat in the room with me and interviewed everybody in there to tears. I mean, I'm talking about we have to fire the guy after everything they told me. I mean, it goes against everything I believe in not to fire that guy. And so I told him, I said, I'm not finished. I said, I'm going to go like, this is going to be supreme excellence, what I'm about to do. Y'all be quiet and let me finish. Okay, now I'm talking to my double my age boss, and he's like, okay. So we go back in the room, and I looked the gentleman in the eye, and I was honest with him. I said, I'll be honest with you. These two gentlemen were concerned that we were going to be letting you go right at Christmas. And I told them, that's exactly what we're going to do. I said, you're fired. You earned it. You need to go clean up your life. I don't know what's wrong with you. I can't imagine anybody that would act this way. I know that the gentleman that hired you has disciplined you and told you that if you keep doing this, you're going to lose your job. So I said, you basically taunted me into coming down here, and you're fired. And I said, but I will pay you through the end of January because I don't want to hurt you and your family, and I have a feeling they don't deserve this, but you do. And my hope is that you will go clean up your act, and you do not need to talk to these people or come around here again. And you're gone. We're done with you. And that was it. And I walked with him. He got his stuff, and I walked him out to the door, and I locked the door. And I walked back in and sat down, and they were like, the gentleman that works for me said, dude, you've got ice water running through your veins. He's like, that was cold-blooded. And I said, dude, you're the one that was crying on the phone that we need to get rid of this guy. I said, I did the right thing by the people. The people here were tapping out. You had the power, and you were too chicken to use the power. And I looked him dead in the eye. I said, do I need to take this power from you and give it to somebody who will wield it to protect the good people or not? He said, no, I can do it. I said, okay, don't ever do anything but thank me for coming down here and doing your job, because one of my big key things is I don't do your job. I just did your job. But I don't mind because you're new and I'm training you. And so I asked them, I said, what do y'all think? And of course, my boss is smiling by now. He's like, he's back to laughing at me. And I said, what are the lessons we learned today? Right? What were the lessons we learned today? Before we went to eat dinner, I wanted to talk with them because I was like, man, y'all just about tapped out on me here. And so the lessons were, don't call your boss down here to do something for you and then try to talk him out of it. Okay, you were right when you wanted to fire this guy. You were right when you asked for help, But you were wrong when you tried to talk me out of it after Snoopy, Sloopy, Scorpion sat over there. Scorpions can cry too. Scorpions can look real pitiful. And so ask the frog, right before he stung him. And so that was number one is don't make me come down here and do your job for you. But if I do, don't get in my way. And then number two, aren't we better to pay the bad guys to go away than to pay them to stay? I said, every person that came in here said, we cannot do our job if this person's here. If this person's here tomorrow, I quit. If this person's here, my husband doesn't want me working here. I've gone home and told my friends the way this person asked, and they want to know what kind of company you work for. And I'm like, dude, that is us. They're talking about us. You have the power to fix it. You have to fix it. And I said, so in my culture here, our culture here that we're trying to create, by the way, the company tanked. There was no way we were going to save that company. They had blown through like $70 million in VC money, which was big going on back then. That was the .com, telecom, era. And so, we were unable to turn it around after about 2.5 years. We did some real good work, but sometimes you can't fly out of the fortress that they built in the ground. But, anyway, back to my point. The other point was in our culture, I would rather pay the bad guy to go away because in the 30 days that this bad person stays here, they're going to wreak havoc. And I paid them. What if I just paid them to go away? And I've done this many times in business. And I'm talking sound people, board level, sound people, senior leadership level. Just look at me like, Mel, what do you mean pay them to go away? I'm like, yeah. If they go away, I've remedied the harm they do within the organization. If they can't block, then I could put somebody up there in their place, right? And they go, well, let's at least replace them before we let them go. It's like, no, these people are wreaking havoc. They're pulling against you. They're creating these people looked me in the eye and they trusted me. You're here, right? You have the power to help us. It is the right thing to help us in this scenario. There's no way I was going to let those people down. So that's a what, how, when for me in my mind. The way I thought about that was, what's going on? Well, Jason wants me to go down there. All right. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go down there and take care of it for him. I'm going to go down there and show him exactly how I expect it to be done in the future. Okay. How? Well, I want to interview everybody in the room and just make sure that they know I care. I don't just want to blow a guy out and leave. And they're like, well, I'm glad he did it, but he didn't even talk to us. So I gave my whole day to that. And then the win was right freaking now. We're going to do this right now. I was not going to compromise on this scenario. And then we introduced the concept of pay people to go away. If you've got somebody that's doing wrong and doing harm, rather than letting them stay 3 more months, give them a small severance package and get them out the door. All right. Let's talk a little bit about current affairs and how Teddy Roosevelt with the man in the arena, the naysayers and the critics and the cynics and, the people that sneer. And there's some really, really powerful language in what Teddy Roosevelt was saying. A cynical habit of thought and speech, a readiness to criticize work, which the critic himself never tries to perform, an intellectual aloofness, which will not accept contact with life's realities. All these are marks, not as a possessor would feign to think, of superiority, but of weakness. So these aren't superior people, they're weak people. And so just to kind of tie in what I'm seeing going on with Trump and what he was trying to do, Trump has a different world view. He has a different what than any president that we've had, in my lifetime. I know Reagan had a powerful what, and he was going after a singular thing. He really needed to defeat the USSR and communism. And he came to where he didn't hate the Russian people, but he hated communism. And he looked for a way to dethrone that evil, right? And that's how he felt. And he was effective. And he didn't go start a bunch of entanglements. But since Reagan, I don't think anybody could rise to power like Trump with Trump's worldview. Trump doesn't like war. He likes to make business deals. And in his heart, he really believes. In his what? He believes, hey, I can get somebody more excited about how we do things together and prosper, even if we don't like each other, than killing each other. And it seems very adult, right? It seems like at some level you should grow up and be that way. And so I think that it's fascinating to just, if you'll bear with me today, even if you're not a huge Trump fan, or even if you don't watch the news or you're not paying attention, what just happened with the 12-day, Iran-Israel war, which is brilliant. Trump is such a good marketer. He came out with the 12-day war even before there was a ceasefire, right? I mean, he's really slick on that. So all of a sudden we turned this, what everybody's afraid this is going to be another 30-year entanglement. It could lead to World War III. We were hearing Iran has the nukes already and they're going to use them. And so it was a lot of, oh, Lord, have mercy, And no matter how much you believe in the boss, no matter how much you believe in even yourself, or let's say you're on a board and you've got to hire a new CEO and you're like, man, I sure do hope this lady can pull this off. I know she's sharp, but you don't know. You don't know until it happens. And so what I just watched Trump do was validate his sincere worldview, which is let's stop these entanglements. But at the same time, let's eliminate the threat. So if by all things I can see, all right, so all this goes down on Saturday evening. I think that's right. My brain's right. And then, by Monday, Sunday, you had something leaked out, absolutely unbaked, inaccurate, low confidence report that somebody at the highest levels, high security clearances, leaks out to New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, and they run with it. And it was so dangerous. What I want to make a point in this podcast today, that was so dangerous for our media to begin to sow the seeds of doubt that we did not, unless it was true, okay? But even then, it's dangerous. It's like, please verify that, because the stakes were too high to let the world, to let Iran think that our media doesn't believe it's blown up. So now they can just act like, they can just keep acting mean. But also Israel didn't want to stop. Israel's like, hey, they want to kill us. So Israel has a right to defend itself. So Trump's over there trying to negotiate. He's like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to blow these 3 sites to smithereens. And when you blow those up over there, you actually blow them down. So you're not going to see this, you're blowing down into the ground as many hundreds of feet as you can to just create just concrete rebar and just chaos, just destruction. So that even if you try to dig it out, it's like, oh my gosh, what a mess. It's destroyed. So to destroy it is a new concept of an almost implosion underground, blowing down into destruction. And so obviously if it wasn't successful, okay, well, tell us that. But you're not going to know that in an underground explosion in 24 hours. What you can do is you can base things based on your models that you attempted to do things, and if you executed that plan appropriately and you knew how those sites were laid out, you could hypothesize and theorize that, yeah, we got them because we executed the mission exactly like we said. So if the mission was planned right, if it was executed right, if the goal by executing it was destruction, then we can say, hey, I think we hit it. We destroyed it. So that's about all you can do the day after. You need to wait for intel. So I'm going to play some things here that just kind of give us some, but here's what the danger was. Please hear me on this. The danger was that nobody thought that we could have a 12-day war. We thought it was going to keep on going. So Trump negotiates that peace by going over there and doing something nobody else in the world could do. And he did it kapam in a complete no people died. Not their people or our people. No people died. America got involved, destroyed 3 nuclear sites, hopefully including a lot of the enriched uranium. We'll find out. But we think they did. And so in that happening, it's like, wow, that was incredible. Before we could even talk about it or celebrate it or have some, a sense of patriotism. And yeah, we did it. They come out with this thing that says, no, we didn't. We didn't destroy it. They could get right on back to making bombs. All right, well, think about what that means. That means Israel can re-engage and say, well, then we'll take care of it ourselves. America let us down. That was so dangerous. Everybody was saying that it was going to create World War III. The cynics, those people that they would rather Trump just create World War III so they could say, see, Trump's a turd. We don't like Trump, instead of America winning. So he pulled it off. But the stakes were too high for either side to come out and do anything to rattle that ceasefire. Get the ceasefire. Why? I mentioned it last week. There's no doubt in my mind that Trump had talked to China. He had talked to Russia, and I think he's talking to them. I don't think it's just – I think he was on the hook to a Putin. He was on the hook to a Xi. He was on the hook to those leaders he met with in the Middle East, at Qatar, Saudi Arabia. He's on the hook to – you could see yesterday when he was over there with NATO how relieved they were. They're like, man, I can't believe you pulled that off. That's incredible. He said, I think I can get this over with. I think I can get them to the peace table. I think we can move forward on a different model, a different worldview. And he pulled it off, if only but 3 or 4 days. But don't go blow the fragile nature of a ceasefire up with fake, leaked, half-baked intel that just makes the military look inept, makes Trump look incompetent, bodes and tempts and goads Israel to keep going, encourages Iran to say, yeah, you didn't blow anything up, because they're a bunch of snakes over there, man. So here's Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth over at NATO. If you saw it, you had the two of them, and then you had Marco Rubio standing there, and Trump was taking no slack. I love it when he does that, honestly, because they're never going to stop. And so he's pushing on them. But listen to this. This is a couple of minutes yesterday, and then we'll listen to a little more updated stuff.
President, you talked about expecting some on-the-ground assessments at Fordo and other sites.
Now
is that Israeli and U.S.?
It's been obliterated, Kelly.
What is your message then, sir, to the intelligence community when they present reports? You're not disputing the DIA report. You're just
they presented a report that wasn't finished. We're talking about something that took place 3 days ago.
I understand that, sir.
The report was done 2 days ago. Wait a minute.
Yes.
They didn't see it. All they can do is take a guess. Now, if you take a look at the pictures, if you take a look how it's all blackened, the fire and brimstone is all underground because it's granite and it's all underground. You don't show it. But even there, with all of that being said, the whole area for 75 yards around the hole where it hit is black with fire. The group that's run by this gentleman, in fact, you may want to talk about it for a second because we're going to issue a report. And I think it's not even a very exciting report at this point. It's been obliterated, totally obliterated. And they did a report, but it was like, if you look at the dates, it's just a few days after it happened.
Sir.
So they didn't see it. They said it may be very severe.
Understood. Do you have a message for the intelligence community, though, in terms of unvarnished information getting to you, that it's not?
I don't really have a message. I would say issue the report when you know what happened. I wouldn't say that it could be severe or maybe not. They use the word severe. It could be severe or maybe it's not. So people like you picked up and said, oh, it's not severe. No, the report was not a complete report. Yeah, the message was probably wait till you know the answer before you.
And, sir, did you not have a public component to your Zelensky meeting for a tactical reason with President Putin?
Let him answer this one.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah. There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12, 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And Somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that drop the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
That's excellent. And so I don't know if I can say it any better. You can tell they're frustrated. You know, these wartime missions like this, they don't always go perfectly. So I'm going to play you some interesting stuff that I found from General Dan Cain, Raisin Cain. Before I do that, let me play what Caroline Leavitt said today. It's only about a minute, but that was yesterday. Okay, so you've got Trump and Hegseth and Marco Rubio over there dealing with NATO, which is a pretty big deal. Okay. And he's over there trying to get 5% out of all of them, and only Spain is the one that he wants. And I thought it was fascinating. He made it real clear to Spain, to their face, and then at the press conference, if you don't pay your 5%, I'm going to get more out of you with tariffs. So remember what I said about Trump and tariffs. Tariffs are a way to get people to behave. Tariffs are a way in Trump's mind to get fair deals. So here he is using tariffs on Spain to make up for the fact that they won't fund NATO. And you've got all the guys around him from all the other countries smiling. I mean, the camaraderie was pretty amazing. But they also knew they were looking over at Trump, and they're like, dude, this dude just stopped Iran and Israel from warring with each other in 12 days. Now, any of us with a Bible knows that war keeps going, okay? But as far as the mullahs in Iran having nuclear bomb capabilities, it looks to me like the 3 sites we hit are obliterated. Like, it would probably be better to go and easier just to go start over in different sites and go try to dig out of that thing. The big thing was the enriched uranium at about 60%. Was it there? Trump said in a truth today that they had seen them with a bunch of trucks out there putting thick concrete over these air duct holes and these entrances to try to thwart any effort to go into those entrances, enter the facility, and blow them up. But he says that they didn't. Trump said it, that they weren't removing any of the uranium. That stuff is really heavy. It's a dust. It's volatile. So just to go running down 30 stories deep down in the ground and moving a bunch of enriched uranium out is a little more complicated than lay people like us might understand. So we'll find out, right? But the bottom line is we don't know till we know. And so check out Caroline Leavitt. This was her earlier today.
The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness. Despite agenda-driven leaks by the fake news media aimed at undermining this incredible accomplishment achieved by President Trump and our brave fighter pilots, there is broad consensus emerging already that Iran's nuclear capabilities were indeed destroyed. The United States, Israel, the United Nations, and even Iran all agree they can no longer build a nuclear weapon. So why did the president immediately turn to obliterating after the Iranian nuclear threat? Securing peace. Within 48 hours of the devastating strike, President Trump and his team brokered a historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war.
So I thought that was pretty slick. So there's a contrast in worldview. So which one worked? Which one worked? What escalated year after year after year, president after president? Was it the Obama model of sending them pallets of cash and allowing them to make a bunch of money off of oil? Or was it the Trump first term where he just cut them off and he weakened them to the point that they didn't have the monies? Even what Trump did in the first term, though, allowed the Scorpion to continue enriching uranium. So then you had Biden, who went back to the appeasement and giving them money and just letting them run all over us model, and John Kerry, Frankenstein. And so
the Trump doctrine here was we have to get their nuclear capabilities. We have to destroy them, and only America can do it. So he did it. But he didn't do it and start a whole nother war, which was about a third of MAGA was worried about that. Oh, Lord, here we go. And they've tried to peel off Tulsi Gabbard and make her look like some sort of an outlier. She's not. She's been right in the fold the whole way. This whole thing is the arena. It's what Teddy Roosevelt was talking about. Those good people in that arena with their bloody face and their bloody knuckles, and they're defending each other, and they love their brothers and sisters in arms. And then they hear these hecklers out there who are just heckling of no value whatsoever. And our media has turned into this heckler group. It's crazy. But listen, this is worth a listen. So when we're talking about Raisin Cain, General Dan Cain, if you remember, Trump found him in the first term to be able to, he found him capable. So remember what we talked about with Art Williams. Remember what we talked about with Nick Saban. Remember what we talked about, today with What, How, When. Somebody capable who says, yeah, I can do this thing. I can command. I have the mental capability, and I have the command of mentally and physically capable men and women within the armed services that can do what you want, Mr. President. And so they went and wiped out ISIS in like a week. Okay, that's who Raisin Cain is. He don't play. He's not up there in Washington in that swamp running around saying, yeah, and then pulling against you as a king cobra of the swamp, the uniparty. This is a guy that wants to do what's best for America, to do what to try not to let down the commander in chief, and he really cares about his troops. So listen to what he says. This is fascinating. Okay, you'll learn, if you haven't heard this, you'll learn a lot. This was from their press conference this morning.
Simply stated, they absolutely crushed it. If you'd flip this over, thanks. Let me next move to a walkthrough of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you. There's an organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordo, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these two Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled with the pride of being a part of this team. I am so honored to be a part of this." To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? So, look, the commander-in-chief of the United States, the president of the United States, has some incredible people at his or her disposal in the military. The problem's been that the power circle, no matter who we elect, they go up there and they don't do what they say. They seem to be owned by these corrupt USAID, NGOs. This whole process, they fall down on what they told us they were going to do. They put a warmonger as a Joint Chiefs of Staff or somebody that's not in charge. Dan Cain's coming in, man. This was a very incredible mission. So he's saying in this little snippet, he's saying that this outfit within the Department of Defense has been studying that specific facility for years and years and years, and modeling it, and there's no telling what technology we have to be able to see down. Who knows, right? But we knew enough about it that we were planning and figuring out how to blow it up for years. And when we finally got a chance to do it, they pulled it off flawlessly, and it was fantastic. And so I've got another segment from General Cain in just a minute, but let's listen to Hegseth today. It was early this morning. I think it was about 7:30 Central Time. He comes out and he was hot. He was mad at the press because, look, he's responsible for all these men and women in the military. He's responsible for executing the commander-in-chief's missions, but they also know what I said earlier. While we were messing with peace, we've achieved peace in something in 12 days that nobody thought that we could do. So even the MAGA was split, going, "Oh man, I'm not so sure. Man, Trump's going to get tricked and duped again, and he's going to have the mustache, whatever that guy, I can't remember his name, the mustache guy." But we instead, Trump pulls off peace in 12 days, and then all this, the media and this establishment, and then you have Iranians chirping, and you have the potential of Israel having a right to go, "Well, if you guys didn't blow it up, we got to finish the job." So very dangerous stuff. But listen to Hegseth this morning. I think he's pretty eloquent and angry.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is, you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack, and we should celebrate it as Americans. And it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years.
You can tell he's irritated. I can't say it any better than that. I mean, dadgum. That's just, you know, you can say, well, Mel, you're just a Trump homer. I'm not. I'm looking at, remember, I mean this sincerely. I really am. I marvel at people that are accomplished doers. I think that, you know, that's the way God wired me to be able to try to go. I get it, the adrenaline rush of getting in a situation and, you know, it being complicated and difficult and saying, hey, I've got to put together a team and we have to pull this off. It's so much fun. I mean, I've been doing that for 30 years and I'm no Trump. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm like-minded with him a lot of times because of what he gets done. I marvel. I'm like, I want to study how he did that. And he has that you have to admit, with Trump in the arena, he has a massive number of detractors and they'll jump on our enemy's side to try to hurt Trump. And that is just dangerous. We're dealing with some serious stuff over there. This could have gone, still could go way wrong. And so listen to General Dan Raisin Cain on this. This is a continuation of what he was saying earlier, but I think this is really interesting. I think it'll be something that you're glad you listened to. Check this out.
In the case of Fordo, the Ditra team understood with a high degree of confidence the elements of the target required to kill its functions, and the weapons were designed, planned, and delivered to ensure that they achieve the effects in the mission space. By the way, in the beginning of its development, we had so many PhDs working on the MOP program, doing modeling and simulation, that we were quietly and in a secret way the biggest users of supercomputer hours within the United States of America. So let me talk about the graphic a little bit. And the GBU-57, which all of you I know is a 30,000 pound weapon dropped only by the B-2. It's comprised of steel, explosive, and a fuse, programmed bespokely, each weapon to achieve a particular effect inside the target. Each weapon had a unique desired impact angle, arrival, final heading, and a fuse setting. The fuse is effectively what tells the bomb when to function. A longer delay in a fuse, the deeper the weapon will penetrate and drive into the target. So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, as seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. A point that I want to make here, the Joint Force does not do BDA. By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. And we know this through other means, intelligence means that we have that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them. And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight."
Wow. So pretty cool, huh? I mean, that's really neat. That's coming directly from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's coming from Raisin Cain. And I mean, you can assess that just as well as I can, but just in a quick summary, 17 years from 2008 till today of doing what we need to do, not only to gather the intelligence and keep an eye on, but to try to model what they've built there and to have PhDs and human and, computer horsepower modeling how we could take these things out. And then a president with the wisdom and the, I believe, almost like the God-sent nature to be able to do this without starting wars. And so God bless America. You're right. God bless Israel. God bless President Trump. I'm just very grateful that we've got a president who's really trying in the arena to utilize strength for peace, has the clout to be able to get the Chinese, the Russians, the others around the Middle East, the Europeans to say, hey, look, give me a minute, stay out of this. Let me see if I can get this over with, pulls it off. And then our freaking media comes in and comes with leaked, wrong intelligence. It's obviously wrong. You're going to learn all kinds of things they never should have run with that. They wouldn't have cared if it came from Dr. Seuss. They were going to run with it. It was all planned, right? And so just keep your eye on this and say a prayer of thanks to God and to and for Trump and for us being able to do this and pray for peace. All right, so a little bit on this clown that's running for mayor in New York City. I mean, that's Zoran Mamdani. He sounds like a jewel. I'll run through this briefly, but I just want to say this. It is so scary that you say, well, how could this happen? It is so obvious how it happens, y'all. Okay, here's how it happens. So Stephen Miller, yesterday on X, says to understand the pace and scope of migration to America in past years, 1/3 of New York City is foreign-born, and almost 2/3 of New York City children live in a foreign-born household. All right, let's break that down. What that means: 33% of New York City residents were not born in America. Okay, when did that happen? Not that they're immigrants. Okay, legal or illegal. We're not even addressing that. We're just saying 1/3 of the residents of New York City weren't born here. So they're alive today, 1/3 of them. They were born in another country, but now they live here and they vote. Okay, it's a sanctuary city. You saw all of the Mayor Adams. He screwed the pooch. He was lukewarm. He didn't come down hard on either side. He was a sanctuary city, and he was fighting off Trump and Holman and all that. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, we need to do, well, he's going to run as an independent. I mean, it looks bad. So that's how that happens. So I'll share with you. I did some research. Okay. Is that true? The foreign-born population in New York City, according to the 2019 to 23 Census Bureau, 36.5%. So Stephen Miller's not wrong. It's 2 years later. He's saying it's upwards of, so foreign-born population in New York City, 36.5%. It's more than 1/3. We're approaching 40%. And so that's that. Okay. Children with at least one foreign-born parent, over half, 54%. That was 2017. So that's higher now. Children in households with foreign-born parents, 60%. So that's where it is now. Crazy. So Stephen Miller was correct. The way this happens, ladies and gentlemen, is you replace the population of, American-born citizens with people that come in as immigrant. They can come in either legally or illegally. But if those people come from Muslim countries, anti-Christian countries, countries that are with anti-American sentiment, they're not Anglo. They're absolutely not Judeo-Christian in their values, right? Then you're going to end up with what you see going on in Europe, in particular in London. It is a catastrophe, and so it's going to be mind-boggling. But let's take a look at this gem of a character, this Zoran Mamdani. All right, so in looking at him, he wants to abolish the NYPD. Okay, these are things he has said. I've watched him say it. I just didn't want to play it on our podcast. I don't want to give the scorpion a microphone, but he is an Islamic socialist candidate, okay, abolishing the New York Police Department. He wants to replace them with social workers. So, I mean, think about that. You call the police, something's wrong, right? And a social worker shows up. So, I mean, good luck for you if you have a problem with somebody breaking the law or you need a policeman up there. You're going to get a social worker, whatever that is. He wants to abolish prisons. He wants to let the prisoners out, okay? He wants to abolish medical bills, socialized medicine. He wants to abolish private health insurance. Okay, that's the way he would do it. He wants to ban all guns, not this gun or that gun. Okay, no guns, gun-free zone. Only the criminals will have guns. He wants to legalize prostitution, sex work. Okay, he wants to create safe injection sites for drug dealers and druggies, people that are hooked on drugs. He wants to end cash bail, no bail required. He wants to decriminalize drug possession, so legalize drug possession. Okay. He wants to end sentencing and enhancements, right? And he wants to end all cooperation with ICE. Okay? That is nuts. I mean, he's like, so let's look at his proposal for the food tank, like he's talking about. On June the 12th, he announced a plan to build 5 municipal grocery stores, one in each borough for New York City. And he said on June the 6th, quote, "We have accepted the premise that you can be priced out of eggs and bread." Close quotes. And he says the goal is, quote, "a city where no New Yorker is priced out of dignity." Yeah. And then he has said, as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores to lower prices. And his plan is a public option to practically and directly address the cost of living crisis. And then he's basically saying that stores will not pay rent, property tax, buy, sell at wholesale, centralized distribution, partner neighborhoods. So it's just nuts. I mean, that's communism, y'all. And so you've got a group of, you have 40% of the people in New York City, they weren't even born here. Their kids, next generation, 60% are, at least one of their parents is foreign born. So they're populating faster than the citizens are, right? You've got the sanctuary status in New York City, and then you have turnout. So if you look at the turnout, if I read it correctly, I'm just doing this from memory, I don't believe that your minority vote block really voted for this cat in the Democrat primary. They're voting. He really got this from the $50,000 to $100,000 a year white people. So it's your Karens. And it's not your blue collar. It's not your labor union, your workers. This is a really strange block he's put together. But a lot of it is because you have people voting that are not American. They may be legal, they may not be legal, but they weren't born here. And you don't need enough of them in one area to take the Big Apple, America's premier city, and turn it into a communist hellhole. I mean, it's just crazy. So, look, you pay attention to that because that's a big deal, and this will be a developing story. And sadly, I believe, if I read correctly, that at this point, anybody that's not already in the race will have to come in as a write-in candidate. And, you've got Eric Adams running as an independent, but like I said, he's been lukewarm. He's yeah and yeah and yeah and yeah. And so, I don't know. I don't know if he can win. And then, I saw the Republican candidate. He's always wearing a little purple hat, and he was with that group of citizens that are red hat, whatever color it is, that would kind of go around and monitor the subways. And you're going to have to put a charismatic character up against this charming, bearded, handsome scorpion. This is a big deal. On our last segment, let's listen to Alex Newman talking a little bit about the whole green scam.
A lot of this environmental question depends on, I think, a very flawed fundamental presupposition. It depends on the idea that carbon dioxide is pollution. And I would argue, after interviewing hundreds of scientists, including many who've worked for the UN IPCC, many of the leading scientists in the world, that the notion that CO2 is pollution is absolutely preposterous. We exhale about 2 pounds of it every single day. The proportion of greenhouse gases made up of human CO2 emissions is a fraction of 1%. The idea that that is going to destroy the planet or change the temperature of the earth is, frankly, in my opinion, totally ludicrous. But from a totalitarian perspective, if you can convince people that CO2 is pollution, there's no human activity that doesn't result in CO2 emissions, including living, including dying, turning on a light switch. Every single aspect of your life, then, if we submit to the idea that CO2 is pollution, then comes under the regulatory control of the people who claim to be saving us from pollution. So when they do these environmental studies and they say, well, your CO2 footprint will be smaller if you eat bugs or you do this, that, or the other, you drive an electric car, that doesn't show anything about whether that's going to benefit the environment or not. In fact, CO2 has actually been very beneficial for the environment. In interviewing Trump's climate advisor, Dr. William Happer, a physics professor at Princeton University, he said the Earth is starving for more CO2. And since we've had a little bit of an increase in atmospheric CO2 over the last 100 years or so, plants have gotten much greener, agricultural yields have improved. So I think we need to also talk about the fundamental presupposition here. Is CO2 really pollution? If it's not, then all these alleged environmental benefits are completely fictional.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All my research suggests he's correct, that the demonization of CO2 is really an attack on humanity. I mean, think about it. Every time you exhale, you breathe out CO2. And I think it's fascinating. Look into that. If you haven't studied that, look into it, because he's on to it. All right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Let's go out with one of the funniest guys growing up. I used to always come on Johnny Carson. This was at I think this was about 1981, and he was speaking to a bunch of Washingtonites. George Bush, H.W. was there, but it was a tribute to Ronald Reagan. And this is Rodney Dangerfield.
Thank you very much. Boy, what a crowd, huh? Now, I tell you, I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape, you know? Yeah, last week my wife signed me up for a bridge club. I jump off next Tuesday. I mean, last week nothing went right. I bought a waterbed. There were 2 Cuban guys swimming in it looking for Florida. Oh, well. Last week I went to the track, too. That was a beauty. I shot off the opening gun. They killed my horse. I'll tell you, nothing works out. My car broke down again. I got a car, I got nothing but trouble. Every Sunday I take my family out for a push. The last time my wife drove the car, she cracked it up, went into a tree. Told me it wasn't her fault. She blew the horn. My wife isn't too smart, you know. One night she went out, some guy stole the car. I said to her, just see what he looked like. She told me she got the license plate number. Oh, she's not smart at all. I told her our kid is spoiled. She told me a lot of kids smell that way, you know. I tell you, it's tough to stay married to my wife. How do you think I feel? She kissed the dog on her lips and she won't drink from my glass. I mean, there's always my wife's father, he just moved in too, has electronic pacemaker. Every time he sneezes, the garage door opens. I'll tell you, life isn't easy. My psychiatrist told me I'm going crazy. I said to him, if you don't mind, I'd like a second opinion. He said, all right, you're ugly too. Are you kidding? I know I'm ugly. Halloween, I open the front door, kids give me candy. My dog found out we look alike. He killed himself. I was an ugly kid, too. I worked in a pet store. People kept asking how big I get. Too fast for this whole section over here. And I was ugly in my sandbox. The cat kept covering me up all the time, you know? You know, what a childhood I had. My mother never breastfed me. She told me she liked me as a friend. Kids today is different. They got it too good. They don't appreciate it either. Last Christmas, my kid wanted a BB gun. I gave him a BB gun. He gave me a sweatshirt with a bullseye in the back. Smart kid I got the other day. I told him about the birds and the bees. He told me about my wife and a butcher.
Oh, man. I don't know if you haven't watched him. Talking about the best of self-deprecating humor. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the Mel Blackwell Experience today. And we'll be back next week. Until then, cheers. And give what, how, when a try in business.